Welcome to IFMS Accounts Payable Overview. The accounts payable in the old system was split into two segments, the offline and the online. The offline consists of the accounts payable requisition, which falls right after the procurement process, whilst the account payable payment process was an online process. The integrated financial management system has now made it possible for you to run procurement, accounts payable requisition process, and the accounts payable payment process within IFMS, which is all online. This flow chart depicts the main processes carried out within the IFMS accounts payable module. It also holds and identifies the officers in charge of the various processes, as well as the documents that are involved throughout the process. Each document is identified by the number. The first process we will look at is the AP accounts maintenance. This process occurs within the accounts division. The first two processes we will look at are the maintaining of the local register, as well as the managing of the APC and contracts register. In maintaining and managing the supplier register, every supplier that deals with the government has to fill a supplier's registration form, which in this case is a sample of one. The first screen on display is the AP Local Office Accounts Manager. Within the screen, there are two main functions: the account maintenance function, followed by the accounts inquiry function. Click AP Local Agency Account Maintenance and a data entry screen displays. In this AP Local Agency Chart Account Inquiry, you are able to carry out inquiries on a particular supplier so as to confirm if the supplier has been registered. Click on the Master AP Account form and a supplier registration form displays in a PDF format. This form is printed out and given to the supplier to fill in before the supplier is registered with the government. Select the AP Master Account Inquiry and a data entry screen displays. In this screen, you are able to either inquire or register a new supplier. In registering a new supplier, the necessary details have to be filled in, the particular fields, bearing in mind the asterisk fields which are mandated. The next role within the AP accounts maintenance is the role of the APC CSTB officer. The three functions found under the APC CSTB officer role are maintenance, inquiries, and finally the reports. Select the APC account inquiry node and a data entry screen displays. In this data entry screen, you can perform an inquiry on a particular contract so as to find out if this contract has been registered with the particulars in place. Select the APC account maintenance node and a data entry screen displays. In this data entry screen, you can register a new contract simply by clicking on the hyperlink Auto Generate a New Account. Contract details are entered in respective fields, especially the asterisk fields, as they are mandated and are required to be filled in. Select Save after you've filled in your data, then close, return to your main screen. To obtain a report, you simply click on the Reports node and a screen displays for you to be able to run the report. Once the report is run, a report can be displayed, shown in this example. This brings us to the end of the APC officer role. The next process in accounts payable is the invoice processing. The first part of invoice processing is the invoice without purchase order. The first responsible officer we will look at is the AP Claims Examiner. Under the AP Claims Examiner role, you have the invoices, which are purchase orders with invoices, invoices without purchase order, and travel allowances and per diem. Select the AP Invoice Entry Non-Purchase Order node and a data entry screen displays. From this data entry screen, the Claims Examiner officer is required to fill in the particular details in the most appropriate fields with correct data. After filling in the data, the Claims Examiner is then required to submit this application to the next approval level, in this case, the financial delegate. This brings us to the end of the Claims Examiner role with regard to invoices without purchase orders. Under the financial delegate role, the financial delegate logs in, then selects the My Workflow tab. From there, the FD then checks the inbox, then selects on his task pane to open his particular invoice. The data entry screen displays. The FD then does his review and checks if the particulars do comply with the information in hand. The financial delegate closes the data entry screen, goes back to the inbox, selects the invoice, then submits to the Section 32 officer. He then selects the appropriate Section 32, fills in his comments, then finally does the submission. The Section 32 officer logs in and again selects the My Workflow tab. The Section 32 officer then checks the inbox. Once verified, the Section 32 officer then selects the invoice, then on the task pane selects to open the invoice. Once the hyperlink is selected, the data entry screen displays. The Section 32 officer then reviews the particular details. Once the Section 32 officer is satisfied, he closes the data entry screen and returns to his inbox. From the various options on his task pane, the Section 32 officer can submit this invoice to the certifying officer once satisfied. The certifying officer then logs in, selects the My Workflow tab, then checks the inbox for invoices. The certifying officer selects the invoice, then chooses Open AP Hyperlink. Once the hyperlink is selected, the data entry screen displays. Once in the data entry screen, the certifying officer then verifies the information within the fields. Once satisfied, the certifying officer then closes the data entry screen and returns to the inbox. Once in the inbox, the certifying officer then goes to the task pane where various options are available for the certifying officer to use. Once satisfied, the certifying officer then selects from the hyperlink Approve and Post Document file so as to make this invoice available for payment. This brings us to the end of the first invoicing process, invoice without purchase order. The next process we will look at under invoice processing is invoice with purchase order. This process once again starts with the claims examiner officer. The claims examiner selects purchase order, invoice entry node, and the data entry screen displays. Once in the data entry screen, the certifying officer then enters appropriate details using the various pick lists and selecting the appropriate amounts. Once all data is entered correctly, the certifying officer then is able to submit this invoice to the next approval level. The next approval level in this case is selected from the task pane and is the certifying officer. This brings us to the end of the claims examiner role. The certifying officer role will be further discussed after the TAN per diem process is looked at. The staff travel allowances and per diem process is also done by the claims examiner officer. Once the TA node is selected, a data entry screen then displays. Data is entered in a similar manner as the previous invoices, but this time bearing the name of the officer that is traveling. The approval process is similar to that of invoice without purchase order. It goes through the FD, then to the Section 32 officer, then finally the certifying officer. Once the certifying officer is satisfied with the data available, the certifying officer then approves and posts the document file, making it available for payment processing. The final process under the accounts payable is the payment processing. The responsible officers are the payment officer, the Section 33 officer, and the data entry payment officer. Under the AP payments officer, select payment processing node and a screen displays. Select from your task pane the hyperlink and a data entry screen displays. In the data entry screen, enter the appropriate approval user, then select the appropriate dates for the various checks to be printed. Then select Run Job on this computer, then click Start Processing to process the payment selections. After the payment selection is run, select from your task pane Work on Payment Run hyperlink. Once the payment run is done, your payments display. From your search field, type down the payment you wish to run, then select Retrieve. Highlight your payment, then select Save. Once you've saved your payment, you can then close your data entry screen and return to your main screen. This brings us to the end of the payment officer's role. The Section 33 officer logs in, selects the Payment Approval tab, then selects the payments. The payments display. From the hyperlink, select Approve All Payments, then select Save. Once the payments are saved, the Section 33 officer then closes the screen. The data entry payment officer clicks on Print Check and a Print Check screen displays. Select Run Job on this computer. Select the payment you wish to run the check for. Then select OK before selecting Start Processing to process the printing of checks. Once the processing of the check prints are done, select from your options to close printing. Once the closing of printing checks is done, the data entry payment officer is required to run various options on the task pane, one of which is the check usage report hyperlink. Select the check usage report and the check usage report screen displays. Select Run Job on this computer, then Start Processing. Once the check usage report is run, the data entry officer then runs the payment register. Once the payment register is run, a payment register report displays. Once all reports are accurate, the data entry payment officer finalizes the report, then sends the report to the server. Once the report is sent to the server, a message displays showing that all payments have been run and have been registered. This brings us to the end of the Accounts Payable overview within IFMS.